Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Anna, and on this channel I talk about narcissistic abuse. I help you heal, and most importantly, I work with you on building up that self-esteem, on building up that belief in yourself that you may have lost dealing with a narcissist or a toxic person, because we know good and well that they like to break people down and they like to tear you down and they like to, you guys know, I don't have to go over it. You know what a narc does to your life, and I'm here to help you in your journey, okay? So today I want to talk about talking to your children about narcissistic abuse. I made a big boo-boo with this situation right here, so that's why I wanted to talk about this topic, because I'm pretty sure there's a lot of narcissistic abuse survivors with children who are probably wondering, should I talk to my kids about this? I'm going to tell you why you shouldn't in the first part of the video, because there's certain factors that you have to take into consideration before you break this information down. And then I'm going to tell you towards the second part of the video why you should. If your child is under 10 years old, under 10, I'm pretty sure they're not going to have the capability or the capacity to understand what narcissistic abuse is all about. Also, you don't want to scare your babies, okay? You want to protect your children as much as you can from this type of information that can be very scary to little children, okay? I know sometimes we're in a lot of pain and we, without really wanting to share this information, we may just open up because we're going through stuff. But my suggestion from someone who has lived it is to not talk to little children about this, especially if that child is a child that you produce with a narcissist. If the parent of such child that you want to have this conversation with is a narcissist, do not use this information if you're trying to put this child, pin this child against their parent, okay? Because at the end of the day, that's still their parent. And that's as hard as that may be, because I understand if people cause you a great deal of pain and they destroyed you and your self-esteem and your belief in yourself and all that I've, experienced, you want to be able to express some of that animosity with your children, but don't do it. And I'm going to tell you why. Like I said, that's their parent. They love their parent. Regardless of what their parent or your child, that child's parent, has done to you, that's still their parent. So again, you want to protect your child. You don't want to scare your child. And you don't want your child to then look at you like you're the big bad wolf. And that's what's going to happen if you tell your child your dad or your mom is a narc and they did this and they did. Don't expose your your small children to these things, okay? Eventually, your children are going to see that parent for who he is, for who she is. There's only so long a person can wear a mask for. You know that because eventually that mask fell off. So in the same manner that you got to see the real narc, your child or your children are going to see it. I know you want them to see the narcissist in the way that you see the narcissist, but if you try to unmask the narcissist to your child or children, it's going to end up backfiring. So don't do it. Allow time, and time will take care of it. Allow time to unmask the narc. Your children are going to see the difference in the way that you do things in your home and in the way that the other parent does things in their home if you guys are separated. If you guys are still together, your children are going to see these things. If for whatever reason you are choosing to stay with this person, because I know sometimes some people want to work it out no matter what, and I'm not here to judge you. Only you know what you need to do. But I do also understand that some narcs try to pin you against your children, the empath or the other parent against your children. And I know that's difficult as well. And that's one of the reasons why I believe it's impossible to be in a marriage relationship with a narcissist and for children not to grow up with some level of confusion and instability, because a lot goes on in a home with a narcissist. A lot takes place. A lot of misunderstandings, a lot of, you guys know, I don't have to tell you, a lot of trauma goes on in a home with a narcissist because of all the gaslighting, because of all the instability. Just the mood in the home is never going to be a happy and peaceful one. It's going to be like a roller coaster, up and down, and that's not good for children, okay? So now that I covered the reasons why you shouldn't discuss narcissistic abuse with your children, I'm going to tell you, before I go, let me tell you what happened to me just really quickly, just to use it as an example of what can go wrong when you introduce your children to narcissistic abuse at a young age. When I was going through my breakdown, when I was going through my emotional hell, the Holocaust that I went through, okay? The very beginning stages, you guys know, that first month, that second month, that I would say the first 6 months are the hardest. Those first 6 months are the hardest because you're really going through it. Just trying to make sense of everything, replaying scenarios in your head, questioning yourself still, knowing that the person that left you or you left is highly toxic, but you're still trying to make sense of what happened because it's really a big mindfuck, okay? So I made the mistake of talking to my then, I want to say she was 6. I think she was 6. I'm not sure. I know she was pretty young. She's now 10. No, she was about 5 or 6, around that age. Too young. But I was so deep in my pain, and I didn't really have people in my circle that I trusted or that were close enough. I must say this. I didn't really have a close relationship with anybody for that matter, other than my middle child. And I was going through so much. I just felt like I needed to explain to her what I was going through. And I wanted to talk to her about narcs because I didn't know anything about narcissistic abuse until I became a full-grown adult in my 30s, my late 30s at that. So I remember just thinking, why didn't my parents warn me about these people? Why didn't my parents talk to me about this stuff? Like, did they not know? I wished in my late 30s that I would have had somebody to warn me. Anyhow, I talked to my daughter out of fear also, because I wanted to prepare her. I wanted her to, identify these people. So I made the mistake because of my trauma, because of my pain and my lack of support. I made the mistake to talk to her about it. And guess what, guys? She went to school talking about narcissism. She went to her summer camp talking about narcs, and her mother having a YouTube channel about narcissistic abuse, and she started calling everything abuse. If somebody called her a name, you're abusing me. If somebody did anything that she didn't like, it was abuse. So she was not ready for this type of information, and I regret it deeply. And that's why I'm here today trying to have this conversation with you guys and point you guys in what I believe to be the right direction, because I lived it and I know what doesn't work. Clearly, exposing little children to narcissistic abuse when they're not ready for these things, it's not a good idea, okay? I mean, we weren't ready as adults. Could you imagine talking about this type of nonsense, not nonsense, this type of very difficult information for a child to process? It's too much. They're not ready for these type of things, okay? So now I'm going to discuss when and why you should discuss narcissistic abuse with your children, okay? When children are mature enough, and every child has a different level of maturity. So as a parent, you know when your children are ready to receive this type of information. When your children are mature enough, yes, you should talk about narcissistic abuse, okay? You should explain to your children what the signs are. You should explain to them how to identify them early, okay? What were the signs that you missed? How you weren't prepared? All of that good stuff. Absolutely, yes. Once your children are mature, yes. Teach them about these people so that you can protect them, so that they can learn how to protect themselves, because you're not going to be alive forever, okay? So absolutely. Again, you don't want to pin them against their father. We're talking about in general. We're talking about in general. You don't want to pin them against their mother, because I know there's a lot of female narcs as well. So we're not using the information to pin your children against their parents. We're never going to do that, okay? Because we're going to harm our children in that process. But we do want to arm our children with things that we didn't have, with knowledge, okay? So absolutely, yes, please make sure that you tell your children about narcissistic abuse. What are the signs? What signs did you miss? All of that. Talk to your children, buy them books. I have books here that I'm going to pass down to my children so they can have a reference. Of course, my children have YouTube. So my channel, so they can see my journey. So yes, when they're old enough, absolutely. But most importantly, aside from teaching your children about narcissistic people, narcissistic abuse, you also, and most importantly, want to teach your children to stay close to themselves, to trust their intuition, to trust their gut, to not allow anyone to gaslight them. You want to teach your children, I have to write stuff down so I don't forget. You want to teach your children to trust people's patterns, their toxic patterns. Teach them that. I think if you teach your children these things, how to trust themselves, how to trust patterns that they see in other people, teach them how to establish boundaries. That line in which you tell a person, you will not speak to me in that way. You will not treat me in that way. You will not do X, Y, or Z. Minimize me. I'm not going to tolerate this. Teach your children to walk away from abuse and disrespect. With family, with friends, with whomever you disrespect me, you gotta go. You disrespect me and I'm telling you I feel disrespected and I'm not gonna tolerate it, and you do it again, you gotta walk away. If you don't want to teach your children about narcissistic abuse, for whatever reason you may have, which may be valid, don't do it. But do teach your children to trust themselves. Do teach your children to know when something feels wrong, that is valid enough for them to not want to associate with people, be it family, be it friends, be it whoever. Teach your children to speak up for themselves. Teach your children self-love. love, and respect. These are things that I was not taught. I'm teaching my children, I've taught my children since they were little to be loving, giving, caring, all of the good stuff. But it wasn't until I went through narcissistic abuse myself that I started teaching my children, wait a minute now. You gotta have limits, because I wasn't taught to have limits. I was taught to be a good person, to do for other people, to be given, to be forgiven. I was taught to be an amazing person with no boundaries, no limits, none of that. I learned that after my toxic relationship, especially my toxic relationships, especially this last one, okay? Not the last one. Well, the last one was horrible too. Listen. Teach your children. That's all I gotta say. Teach your children about setting limits and boundaries with people, about loving the heck out of themselves, about respecting themselves, about believing in themselves, that they're worthy, that they matter, that they are capable, all of that. Arm them with knowledge. That's the best thing you'll ever do for your children, okay? Because if you arm your children with whatever knowledge you're getting about narcissistic abuse, about self-love, about boundaries, about all that stuff, your children more likely than not are not going to go through the things that you went through. I'm not saying they're not going to go through things, because that's part of life and we all go through stuff, right? And honestly, most of the time, that's how we learn. We fall, we get back up. We fall, we get back up. But if your children have a parent like you who's going to build them up, who's going to give them the knowledge, who's going to be people who are going to grow up as adults who are firm in their decisions, who are confident, who have limits, know how to put boundaries, they're going to be way better people. They're going to be way better people, and they're going to put up with less, and they're going to deal with less, and they're going to have better relationships and more successful relationships, okay? Before I go, and this must be said, aside from teaching your children all of these things, when you sit down and you talk to them, which you should do often, I do that with mine because I don't want my kids to suffer. Aside from talking to them, you also got to walk that walk. You also have to walk that walk, meaning don't tell your children to have boundaries with people, but yet you put up with people's mess. Don't teach your children to walk away from people that hurt them, but you stay right there taking mess from family members and boyfriends and husbands and girlfriends and wives and friends. Your children are also watching you. They're also seeing, what are you doing? What are your actions, okay? Because if we do all that talking, but we're doing something different, it's very likely that your children are going to repeat those patterns. How can you, 10 years down the road, 15 years down the road, 20 years down the road, tell your daughter or your son, don't do this, that, or the third, because, you know, it's gonna hurt you. You're headed in the wrong way. But then you did it for 20 years. I'm not saying, hold on, I gotta drink water. I'm not saying when you didn't know any better. I'm saying once you know better, you have to do better for yourself, and you have to do better for your children if you have children, because they're watching you. The biggest example on how to do life, your children are getting from you. So it's very important that as we teach our children what they need to be doing and what they need to learn and do as adults to be better people, that you're also doing it, that you're walking that walk. Because your children will repeat the patterns they see, okay? So that was my video for today. Only you know what you choose to do with your children, but I hope you do the right thing, okay? All right, my loves, that was my video for today. I will see you guys next time. Take care.